Fun Ideas Productions presents the Fun Ideas Podcast.
This is the Slow Poisoner. I come to you from the future with these words of warning.
It's a hot horror planet. 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 Living in science fiction. Past the point of no returning. We got high on gasoline. And we blew the scene.
Hi, this is Mark Arnold, and welcome to Fun Ideas Podcast number 74. This episode is sponsored by the fine folks at Lee's Comics. Attention comic book fans, Lee's Comics in Mountain View, California has closed. But here's the good news. Lee's Comics eBay store is still going strong with over 10,000 vintage comics, the majority of which are now on sale, for half off. Choose from Lee's huge stock of golden, silver, bronze, and modern age comics, and specializing in Silver Age Marvel titles. You can count on friendly service, accurate grading, and quick, secure shipping backed by a money-back guarantee. To check out Lee's eBay store, go to eBay. Click Advanced Search to the left of the search bar, scroll down to Sellers, and enter Lee's Comics Inc., period. That's LeeScomics Inc., period. Don't forget the period. Lee's Comics is shipping daily with no delays. New items daily. Mention the Fun Ideas Podcast and get a free bonus gift. The pandemic continues, and that's why I decided to record a few more episodes that will last at least until the end of June for your enjoyment. As always, please let me know how I'm doing with your comments and subscriptions and Patreon support. You know my other books, but if you don't, go to Amazon and follow author Mark Arnold. Make sure it's me and my books. You'll know because the books are all about animation, comic books, and music. Any other subjects are most likely by another Mark Arnold. All of my books are available in hardback, paperback, and ebook, except for the 2 cracked history books and my first Disney book, which don't have hardcover versions at this time. Since I assume you're still self-isolating, this is a good time to catch up on my earlier books. As for new projects, I'm still waiting for the Warren Kremer book and the second TTV book to come back to the publisher, and I'm working on my Mad book and second Disney book in the meantime. I'm also finishing up 4 articles for Back Issue Magazine, and I'm selecting cartoons for a new collection by Bruce Bollinger, for which I will also write a foreword. I'm supposed to appear at some point with my co-author Michael A. Ventrella to discuss our Monkeys books on Zilch, a Monkeys podcast, but it hasn't been scheduled yet. I'll let you know. Our returning guest today runs a comic book store in Santa Monica, California called Heidi Ho Comics. Plus, he writes and draws his own online comic strip book called The Collectors. He discusses how he's handling running a comic book store during a pandemic. Here he is again, Eddie DeAngelini. Okay, on the phone today, we have the return of Eddie DeAngelini. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. How are things with this wonderful pandemic we're in?
Things are a bit crazy and up in the air. Things are literally changing from day to day, hour to hour, it seems. But we're holding in there and doing the best we can.
Mm-hmm. Is L.A. like in a severe lockdown? I mean, they tell us here in Oregon not to leave the house, but I mean, they're not strict on it, but, you know, they frown on it if you're going out and just fooling around, so...
Yeah, it's the same here. It's not a full lockdown, but it's a shelter in place, so you're being told if you don't need to go out, don't go out.
Yeah. So... Other than that, I mean, what would you like to talk about today? You said, hey, let's do another podcast. So I said, okay, I'm fine. I don't have any questions or anything.
Oh, okay. I thought you had an itinerary of which you wanted to get to. Well, I guess probably the biggest thing on everyone's mind right now is what's up with the comic shops.
Yes. And
So
yeah, we can
I
discuss
guess
that.
that is, yeah. I mean, that's kind of like a thing that is on everybody's mind right now. It's definitely on mine.
Mm-hmm.
Our shop here in Los Angeles has been closed for about a week and a half now.
Mm-hmm.
And we are closed to the public. We have pretty much moved to doing as much as we can as far as servicing all our pull customers by phone, and doing as much by mail order that we can.
Mm-hmm.
So as you can imagine, that's been kind of hectic and crazy. And for everyone having to stay at home, my wife and I, who actively manage the shop, have pretty much been there almost every day since we closed, because all our inventory is there. The POS is there. I mean, our way of like contacting and ringing up and taking care of our pull customers, everything is there. So we've pretty much been there trying to keep the business going best we can.
Mm-hmm. And I know you've heard the news, of course, about Jeppy ceasing distribution. So what do you do in a situation like that?
Well, we are trying to move to a model of basically putting as much as we can of our inventory that we have in the shop up online, make it available through social media, eBay, routes, our website, routes like that. Because while there is no new inventory coming in, for most comic shops, they have a wealth of inventory already in their shops that they just need to start pushing.
Right.
So we're doing our best with that.
Mm-hmm. And
last week was, for those who don't know, last week was the last week that Diamond was going to be sending any new books.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we were already closed. So we got the new inventory for the week, and we were closed. So we processed our inventory as usual, put aside all the books for pull customers, and then quite literally started calling every pull customer one by one by one by one, and letting them know, we have your books, we are closed, but we're making them available to you. You can pay online, you can pay over the phone, we'll do curbside pickup, or we'll ship them out to you. So we literally, I mean, it was 3 days worth of work of us doing that.
Wow.
To call every single one and go through the list. And thankfully, the majority of our pull customers were very generous, and we're like, yeah, let me get everything I have in my pull folder. Let me support you guys. Some of them even said, let me throw on a gift certificate on with that. So
oh, wow. Okay.
A lot of them, one, we're happy that we called and that we have the books for them and want to get them to them. And two, they were also just so happy to do what they can to help support us.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a really good week for us. And then now comes this week. Here it is Wednesday again, and there are no new books. So we quite literally are from day to day having to figure out what to do, really.
Wow. Yeah. I think you might know my friend Lee Hester, or at least
yes,
are aware of him. And he just decided to bite the bullet and just close his shop for good, after 37 years. Does that seem like a possibility with you, or is like because I've also talked to other comic store owners for this podcast, and they say no, we're going to keep going. So what do you see as the outlook for the next 6 months to a year?
Well, we're going to keep going until we absolutely can't, and I think most shops are in that same position.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of shocked at how quickly he threw in the towel.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know him personally. I just know him online, so I don't know all of the things that led him to that decision. But I think he probably realistically looked at the idea of this is going to go on for several months. It's not just going to be a few weeks or a month and everything's going to be back to normal.
Yeah.
He probably saw this going on for several months, looked at how long he could realistically survive, and realized that I'm not going to be able to go all that long. I'm not going to make it through all those months.
Right. But it wasn't a snap decision. I mean, I've been friends with him for at least a decade, and it basically, he's had it in his plans to eventually close the shop anyway, and switch to an online model and also just a small show model.
So he saw this as, okay, that makes sense. He saw this as his opportunity to go ahead and switch gears, maybe sooner than he expected to,
right.
But realized, why should I sit here and bleed money trying to keep the shops open when that's not the plan that I have anyway? Let's just do it now.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and then the only thing he had planned to do, which he obviously is not doing, he was going to have, when the lease expires, have one of those wonderful big going out of business sales, but, it's like, well, now he's not. Yeah, so...
you adjust.
Yeah, so he adjusted for that, and it's like, and things are doing fine for him. So his online sales are still holding up. So he's happy. I mean, he's only dealing with back issues, and ironically, he didn't know anything about Diamond or Jeppy or anything. He just decided to do it almost spur of the moment. There's a little thought process. It wasn't just hey, I think I'll close. This sucks. But.
That's how it came across online. I didn't know the rest of the story.
Right,
so
and most people didn't. I mean, I knew because I'm close to him, but, I'm not going to go out there, well, when his lease expires, he's going to close the store. I'm not going, But now that it's closed, I can say that retroactively and say, he eventually had a plan to close the store. But he could have always changed his mind, too, so that's why it wasn't good to blather it out. But once he did it, here we are, so.
Yeah. Well, I can see, unfortunately, thinking realistically, I mean, I can see this affecting not just a lot of comic shops, but a lot of small mom-and-pop shops, throughout the entire country, because how long can any of them continue to pay their rent on their store space without being open? I can't imagine a lot of shops are going to be able to do that.
Right.
I can unfortunately see us coming out of this where a large percentage of small shops are forced to close, and now we are left with Walmart, Amazon, all the big retailers, and no alternative to that, unfortunately.
Right.
Which is sad.
I'm just wondering, and you're probably in the know more than I am about the distribution part of things. I mean, is there a possibility of a workaround, since Diamond says no, but to go order directly from the publishers, or through like Ingram, which is the distributor to newsstands or something like that?
To a very to a small extent, that already exists, because a lot of the smaller comic publishers, I've gotten to know people there, and I could at any point go to them and order inventory. A lot of it is more or less the older back issue inventory or a previously released inventory, but it's just a small step to go from that to getting the new issues from them, because they themselves are going to be hurting because they have nowhere for them to sell them to now that Diamond is closed.
Right.
So I can see a lot of them reaching out. I mean, I've already gotten emails from some of the really smaller publishers who are saying, hey, we're here for you. If you want inventory for Wednesday and for your regulars, contact us. We'll make it available to you. So some of the much smaller publishers are already starting to do that, and I could just see it, if this goes on long enough, I can see that going up the chain. Yeah. Because at this point right now, literally the flow of cash throughout this whole system is just at a complete dead stop. And it's kind of like a river, I guess. If you dam it up, but it's got to flow somewhere. It's going to find somewhere to leak out elsewhere and keep flowing past the dam. So I could see that some of the publishers or creators even as well kind of trying to circumvent the blockage that we have at a certain point and trying to get past it.
I'm wondering, and this is, also again, if you're more in the know than I am, is like if somebody else's wheels are turning, if it's just mine, then I'm putting the idea out there. I'm not going to do this, but somebody goes, Diamond's ending. They're no longer the monopoly. Maybe I could start up Cold Cut or Friendly Franks or whatever the ones that used to exist. I'm not saying those names, but just a brand new distribution system, by a different owner, and it's like, if Diamond decides to just bow out because of whatever reason, can somebody else just pick it up and say, hey, we're going to do it again, but I'm doing it now instead of them. Is that a possibility, you think?
At such short notice, like in what we're in right now, that would be a tall order, I think.
Yeah.
But at some point, it's going to, and I think there's been talk about this kind of thing for so long, and there's been some people who have tried to start a distribution service, not to take anything away from Diamond, but to service those creators of very, very small publishers that Diamond won't take on.
That's true.
They're basically saying, hey, Diamond is saying no to you, come with us. We'll distribute you through comic shops. It never really took off, but maybe it's taking something like this to happen for that suddenly to look more like a viable opportunity for these people to step in and say, hey, let's start with the low fruit, these small publishers, small creators, and get them on board, and then get bigger ones, and turn into maybe not someone who's going to steal away Marvel and DC, but someone who has enough small publishers to where they are now somewhat of a credible threat, or at least somewhat of a what's the word I'm looking for? At least someone who can stand up to Diamond and exist alongside them.
It'd be funny if somebody did, and in some ironic way, Marvel and DC were kind of left in the lurch, because in a certain respect, I always think at this point they kind of think of the comic books as a lost leader, and it's like the films is what we are doing. We're doing all, and it's like. It always bugged me of all these years of doing these Marvel films and DC films and everything. Never once in the film do they promote the comics, either by just having a character read a comic book or even having a small ad at the beginning of the film. It's like because they could. Yeah. And
well, my pain as a retailer with that then, because I don't know how many times my wife and I go out somewhere and we tell people what we do, and they say, oh my gosh, you just must be making money like crazy with all these films. Yeah. And I have to tell them no, because those people that are all going to see all those films and talk about how much they love them and they love those characters, they're not coming in the shop and they're not reading. Yeah. So, I could see at some point Marvel having to choose, do we just shut down the comic end of this, the print end of this, or do we find an alternative to Diamond?
Right. Yeah.
And I couldn't see them going through the trouble of finding an alternative to Diamond unless it's either beneficial to them or something that is way easier for them.
Right.
Because if they have to jump through more hoops, they're just not going to bother.
Right. And it's just interesting because, for years they've kind of ruled the roost in a certain way, but kind of neglected a lot of the industry as well. And it's almost like, oh, here's your comeuppance here, or something.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, now you can be that nice movie studio. We'll see you later. We're going to have, the indies are going to be the new, leaders in comic book industry or something. I don't know,
Yes. Then that'll be my time to shine. Thank you very
much. Since you mentioned that, how is your comic book doing?
Well, I meant to have, this is just so weird that it happened this way. I meant to have the newest print volume of Collectors available, which would be the 5th one, available by the end of, or at least done by the end of 2019 and off to the printer. Which would have meant that I would have had the print copies and everything done before all of this hit, but then have no conventions to sell it at. And I didn't finish it in time. I'm pretty much just finishing it literally as we speak, probably this week. And now I'm in the position of I don't really have a printer to send it to because anyone non-essential is pretty much just shut down.
Yeah.
So I'm, like we said, I'm adapting, and I'm going to go ahead and release it digitally first with the intent of it going to print probably later in the year when all of this blows over. So
Right.
so it's suddenly you've got to look more seriously at, for someone like me, a smaller creator, you got to look more seriously at the digital distribution model and how do you market that and how do you actually make money with that. Whereas before it was just kind of an afterthought alongside the print version that you sell.
Right. Yeah,
But now it's your only thing, so now you got to figure out how do I make this work.
Right. I've had to contend with that with my books, but it seems like ebooks and print volumes of books up until now have been like peacefully coexisting, and so, I still get more ebook sales just because people don't like to spend as much on a book. But the book until now are not suffering. I don't know about now. I mean, it's like I hear differing things, it's like, Amazon is doing regular distribution, then I hear only essentials. It changes from day to day, so I don't know what the exact thing is.
Well, I know that we tried to order some supplies for the shop through Amazon because we have an Amazon Prime account, and we use that to get whatever supplies we need here and there for the shop. And some of the shipping supplies we need that we're burning through now because everyone, you're trying to do everything mail order, we can't get because Amazon is saying it's not essential. And so, you can put your order in, but you won't get it until like the end of April or something. So now we are literally doing what we can to scrounge to get proper shipping supplies that we can't just get like we normally would.
Right. So it is affecting things that way. You see, I wasn't sure, because I thought maybe if they had it in their warehouse, but then, of course, they could have sold out, so,
But also, from what I have been told, it's a lot of, I don't know about Amazon, but I definitely for Diamond, in that case, trying to get stuff sent, is that a lot of people are pretty much trying to exist on skeleton crews right now.
Right.
So I don't know if that applies for Amazon, though.
Yeah. Well, the latest I've heard is, but it is more for the essentials, is that, they're, having people step up and work longer hours. Of course, they want to go on strike now because they're doing extra hours and they feel they should be paid more for it, which they probably should be, but, hey, don't go on strike right now, it's like, but, what can you do? But, I always think this way. I try to think positively on everything. It's like, hey, if you're out of work, try to get a job at Amazon. They probably need the help. So,
Oh, yeah. I mean, if I can't make any money with the shop, I literally can just go a few blocks from my house to the grocery store because they're begging for people.
Right.
I mean, you can't walk 2 feet in the grocery store without banging your head on a big sign that says help wanted. They're desperate.
Yeah. And, my brother, who at times has difficulties getting employment and stuff like that, was bitching recently, saying, I just got a job and then now they're not hiring me. And then all these friends of his just said, go, run to 7-Eleven, run to the grocery store, just say I'll do it. They'll hire you. Trust me. So I think he took the advice because I haven't heard him bitching since. But that was, that was like a week or two ago before everything really hit, so.
Yeah, well, desperate times call for desperate measures. If that's what you have to do, do it. Yeah. If you're able financially to stay home by all means.
Right.
But if you got to do something, get out there and do what you have to do.
Yeah. Fortunately, because I work in the healthcare industry, I'm not on the front lines or anything. I just produce the healthcare booklets for people who have health insurance. I'm considered, or the whole company is considered, an essential business. So they did send us home 2.5 weeks ago, and they said, you're going to stay as long as it takes. We're not going to listen to any leaders or any other countries. We're just going to take it day by day. So, even before they were saying April, or Easter or any other days, it's like, this is probably going to be for a few months at least. So, hang tight. Yeah.
I mean, I've been telling everybody, I'm sure that most places, my shop included, are probably going to be closed for 3 months minimum.
Right.
So there needs to be a countrywide, federal-wide effort to keep people alive. And by people alive, I mean obviously us in our homes who eat food, pay our rent, but also businesses as well. Because like I said, how many businesses can go for 3 months or more without paying their rent? I mean, maybe if you're in a small state where your rent isn't very much on your shop, maybe you can manage to do it. But if you're in a large city like Los Angeles, like I am, when your shop is closed and you have minimal money coming in, paying your rent on that store is going to be a really tough thing to do. So, we've gosh, today's the first, and we're going to have to pay the rent, and I'm going to have to talk to the property owner, the landlord, and the management company, and tell them, look, we need to work something out here. Because if this goes on for 3 months or more, you're not going to get the rent.
Right.
Every month on the first. It's just not possible. I have to tell my personal landlord the same thing, that my business, my shop is closed, which means I'm not making any income.
Right.
And neither is my wife. And this is unforeseen. It's not our fault. You and I need to come to some kind of understanding. And that needs to happen nationwide. Yeah.
I know up here in Oregon they have it where you have to prove that you're not working, but you have a 3-month grace period right now. You still have to pay it without interest, fortunately, but you don't have to pay it right now, so...
Well, sorry to interrupt, but that's no help either, to be honest with you. Right. You're telling me that for the next 3 months, I don't have to pay rent on my shop, but when you open back up again, you have to continue paying your rent plus your back rent on top of that.
Right.
Well, okay, that's fine. So being closed didn't put me out of business, but me having to now pay rent and back rent on top of that once I'm open again, that's going to put me out of business.
Right.
And a lot of shops are going to be in that situation. So that's of no help either. There literally needs to be a nationwide pause button.
Right. I think the longer it goes, there's got to be something. I mean, but I think there's still people out there, and I'm sure it'll last for a while, that aren't taking it that seriously. I mean, I admit, at first, when I first heard about it, it's like, we've had other things like Ebola, and we've had bird flu, we'll get over it, and then... when it started getting a little more serious, then I started taking it more seriously and backed off saying silly things or anything like that. And, but there were still a few holdouts that were saying, this is overblown by the media, and it's like, no, you could die from this.
They're looking at the wrong thing, too. They're focusing on the wrong thing. Those are the people that are saying, the regular flu kills way more people every year than this does. Yeah. That's not the point.
Right.
One, the point is that this thing is spiking fast.
Yeah.
And it's not about how many people are going to die. Mm-hmm. It's about the 20% that get infected that are going to have symptoms so severe that they need to go to a hospital.
Right.
And the problem is, if you don't try to contain this, that number of that 20% is going to be way higher than the actual amount of hospital beds there are in the entire country.
Right.
And then we're really going to be screwed, because now all the hospitals are going to be overrun. There's not going to be enough doctors and beds to go around. And then on top of that, other people who have other medical reasons to have to go to a hospital, whether they got into an accident or had a heart attack or anything like that, those people are going to get no help in the hospital either, because they're already filled up and overworked.
Right.
And it's like, you had a heart attack? You just broke your leg? You got into a car accident? Well, get in line. We got we're already filled up. Sorry, and they get turned away.
Yeah.
And then the death rate is even higher because you got the people that died from this virus, plus all the people that died for other reasons because they couldn't get any type of medical help.
Right.
So that right there is the whole reason why we all have to stay home. Not because people are going to die, but
Right.
because we cannot let the medical industry get completely overrun.
Yeah. Yeah. And I totally understand
why that is so
but,
hard to, a lot of people don't, and I don't understand why that is so hard to get. It's not.
Yeah. The interesting thing, now I've done a lot of research reading up on the Spanish flu, which was the big flu that lasted for basically 3 years from 1918 to 1920. And they always say back then is like, well, the reason for the upsurge is because that's when people started traveling the world a lot, and it's like, okay, but how come that hasn't happened since, and it's like, and so it was always kind of like, in the back of my head, what if we had something like this? I didn't want it to happen, but, it's like, could that happen? It's like...
Are you saying you wished it into existence?
No. And forgive me if I have a cough. It is not a pandemic cough. I always seem to cough whenever I do my podcast, and it's like, oh my God, he has it. It's just because I do a lot of talking, and it's like, yeah,
my wife gets allergies where she has to sneeze or cough, and when we're in public, she's trying desperately to hold it in and not cough or anything. So,
but here's an interesting thing, because once I start researching things, I research interesting different things, because I was saying, okay, they've already said like XYZ movie has been delayed. Let's say Wonder Woman 1984 has been delayed. They're pushing it off to the fall. And I go, geez, 100 years ago when they had that flu, they were making movies, and I go, I thought movies just kind of came out the whole time, but I have this book, The Films of Charlie Chaplin, and I decided to look it up. And he had a bunch of films that came out in 1916, a bunch of films that came out in 1917, and then in 1918, when it hit, only 2 films, and they were short films, he wasn't doing the features yet, were released, and 2 in 1919, and I believe 1 or 2 in 1920, and then it was 1921 that he started doing the features, and I don't know if that was the reason why. No book has ever talked about it, or talked about
it would make sense,
the releases being, curtailed or anything like that. And it was interesting reading that, because I go, wow, it's like, because I was wondering if they're just putting them out, who's seeing them, and then I realized they weren't,
Yeah.
So...
But I was also just about to say, well, because I thought you were going to tell me that there was no break in the films that were made and released, and I was going to maybe counter it by saying, well, maybe they didn't know as much then about transmission as we do now, but it appears that they did.
Well, it sounds very similar, and I hate to say this, but, everybody says, oh, this will be over in a few months. Well,
nope.
It's going to be a ebb and flow thing, and that's what happened back then. It's like it may go away in the summer. Yay, we can start seeing each other and back in business and everything. As soon as the winter hits, it'll come back, and then we'll have to go through it again. It might not be as severe as 2020, but still, and that's how it went on the flu back then. It was 3 years of it, and it's like, and then it finally went away, and I don't even think they came up with a vaccine or anything back then. It just finally
spread itself out.
Yeah, spread itself thin enough that, it kind of petered out or whatever,
Well, for those people who say, well, it's only going to last a couple months or so, I guess, you can answer that with, yeah, you're right, but it's basically just that initial spike, that initial high spike that's going to last that long, and after that it'll begin to come down and we can begin to control it, but that doesn't mean just your life just goes back to normal the way it was.
No. I mean, this is going to have repercussions for decades, I think, and it's like or at least a decade, it's like because I can't, I'm trying to be positive about it, but it's like this is a game changer. It changes everything, you know.
It does. But it also just really reminds you that in life you have to adapt. You have to change.
Yeah.
If something, you know, the usual model of how you made a living or how you survived and how you lived your life day to day is now upturned, you're going to have to put something new in its place and not just sit there and say, why can't it be the way it was? Because it's not.
Yeah.
My big concern that I'm still waiting to hear something on is San Diego Comic-Con.
Yeah.
I was talking online with someone earlier today about the convention season for the year, and I think we both pretty much agreed that the entire convention season of 2020 is pretty much done.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen. And one, I can see the people who run San Diego Comic-Con and the city of San Diego wanting really badly to do it because it is such a big moneymaker for them. And I could see the entire city of San Diego taking a huge hit if it doesn't happen. But at the same time, how could they justify putting it on like normal?
Right.
You can't. I mean, obviously you have the huge crowd of people, not just in the convention center, but in the entire downtown San Diego area for blocks. I mean, just packs and packs of people, and not just people from the U.S., but people from worldwide.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't see it happening. I mean, I knew they were going to postpone WonderCon, but, you know, it's like... You know, I haven't gone to San Diego in a few years anyway, but I was saying, as soon as it started, I said, that's like the biggest thing I know of, other than maybe occasional rock concerts, you know, it's like, and I go, wow, if they're, you know, the rockers aren't going out, you know, the sports teams aren't going out, I don't see this convention going on either, you know.
True. And, I mean, you know, my wife and I, we go every year. For us, that's kind of like a vacation.
Right.
You know, we'll go to Comic-Con, and then, you know, maybe we'll get there a day or two before, or we'll stay a day or two later and just kind of enjoy time to ourselves, maybe just in San Diego. But, yeah, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
And the sad thing is there was also a big concert that same weekend in Petco Park that I bought tickets for my wife for Christmas. Mm-hmm. And now I'm thinking, that is no way that's going to happen. And those tickets were super expensive.
Yeah.
So I better get a credit or something for those.
Right. Wow. It's kind of amazing, and it's like, it's not because I was predicting anything, trust me, but last year I did a ton of traveling, I more than I normally do, and I went to California like 4 times. One was to film a documentary, one was to be on a podcast, one was just to visit relatives and family and stuff like that. And so my last visit was in November, and I just said, wow, I've racked up a lot of debt here going down to California. I think for 2020, I think I'll take it easy and just make more phone calls and just Skype and stuff like that. Not knowing at all that now I can't go, you know. So, you know, I talked to my dad and I go, well, and he was actually planning to visit up here at the end of March or April, or end of April, you know, and he's not going now, you know. He's at home, you know.
Hey, but hey, what does this all have to do with comics?
It doesn't. I don't know. Well,
it has everything to do with it, really, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, getting back to what we talked about, the whole comic book model at this point is pretty much at a complete standstill.
Yeah.
From creator to publisher to distributor to shop to comic buyer.
Yeah. Well, how it affects me as a buyer, to be honest, I'll say that because I don't own a shop. And honestly, I have been, either due to natural attrition, like Mad Magazine or something, not publishing and getting it in, although it still goes to the comic stores, or was, but not being distributed. It's like it got, and titles being canceled, fewer and fewer current titles I was buying Whereas,
Yeah.
like, even 2 or
Yeah.
3 years ago, I think I was buying, like, about 10 or 15 titles a month. And I'm not the hugest superhero fan, I hate to say. You know, and if I'm going to read Marvel or DC, I'm going to read the older stuff. You know, so that's
True.
just... But,
But
I'm...
unless you're buying all that older stuff, like literally in their original form, the older gold or silver, Bronze Age stuff, you're most likely buying them in some type of reprinted trade paperback
Right.
format, which also requires a trip to the comic shop.
Right.
For the most part.
And
So there's so much more in any shop than just the newest issues for that week or the
Right.
previous week. You know,
And that's what I go to the shop for. You know, it's like
Yeah.
I go to the shop, and you know, it's kind of funny. One day I was kind of depressed. I say, why am I depressed? I mean, I could be depressed, honestly, about people dying, and this is tragic, and da 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 da. But you know, I am, but, you know, not really depressed about it. I just, you know, but I said, I have this other feeling about it. And I realized I don't mind being at home because I work on my books at home all the time. I don't mind being at home because I do my podcast at home. I'm at home right now. So it's like, you know, this is not anything unusual. But what I miss is I miss shopping for, like, comic books, records, going to the thrift shop. You know, just, I'm bored. I'll go out for an hour and just go to a couple shops and look around. Even if I don't buy anything, it's just the act of doing it, you know. It's like, and the only way I'm going to shop right now is, we need some groceries, so I'll risk going to the grocery store later this week because I have to, you know, to get some more stuff in here. Otherwise, I wouldn't go out at all because, you know, you're not supposed to, and it's like there's nothing to see anyway, you know.
Yeah.
And that's what I miss. It's like, you know, and once I hit it on the head, I felt a lot better because I go, why am I depressed? Oh, I can't shop. You know,
well, like anything, it's a routine, and it's something that, one, you look forward to, two, it relaxes you, you know, it puts you in a, probably for you, a positive mindset, and now you're being denied that.
Right.
Whereas I spend so much time on the freeway, battling traffic, going to and from the shop, being there all the time when I just want to be home and relaxing, and now I actually have the opportunity to do some of that. One, I'm enjoying it, but two, I'm also upset because it feels like I'm being denied that in a way because I've literally been going into the shop more than I normally do to try to figure out how to keep some money coming in.
Right.
So, I don't know what my point is other than I don't see being home working on stuff such a bad thing.
Yeah.
You know, I guess I'm more of an introvert than an extrovert. I don't need to talk to anybody all day long outside of my wife.
Yeah.
And if I have a project I'm working on, I can just immerse myself in that literally all day.
Right.
You know, like working on the newest collector's book or working on new content or whatever. I'm more than content staying home and doing that.
Right.
But I understand how some people, they need that routine, they need to go out, and that's what's frustrating actually because here in LA, both in Santa Monica where the store is and both a little farther south in Torrance where I live, it's gotten to be a problem because for the beach areas, we suddenly had on the weekends way too many people out of their house and out on the beach and not practicing any type of social distancing. I mean, it got to the point where both in the city where I live in, Santa Monica, where the shop is, the local government and the police all said, we're shutting all of this down.
Yeah, they had to do that up here too.
Yeah.
And it wasn't as crowded as down there, I bet, but, you know, it was the same thing. I mean,
it was the first weekend after everything was shut down, shelter in place. It was a nice weekend. It was sunny. It was nice. Suddenly, all these people were just out everywhere, and literally the police had to say, "That's it. We're cracking down. Everything's shut down. Everything's closed. Go home. We're going to be patrolling. We're going to break up crowds and tell you to just go home." And I can see it coming to a point where they're going to start fining or ticketing people.
Yeah. I mean, to go by your earlier point about being an introvert, I will admit I'm an introvert myself. Now, some people may say, what, you have a podcast? Well, I turn it on for this. I mean, if I sounded all introverted on a podcast, you wouldn't hear anything. But, most of the time, I'm sitting here, working on my stuff, and I'm being very quiet. I'm typing things, I'm researching things. But, there comes a point, even when I'm doing what I love, which is working on a book or something, that I go, I just got to get out. And, that's how I kind of relax myself. Other people, they go out and exercise or they take a walk or whatever. I like to shop. I like to browse through bins and everything. Can't do that anymore. And shopping online, even though I do buy things online too, isn't a substitute because it's so sterile, I guess is the best way to put it. It's like sometimes you just want to look at things. You don't necessarily want to buy, it's like, or, maybe you'll buy it next time. And so now Heidi Ho Comics has this book. I'll remember it next time, and hopefully it's still there or something, or maybe they can save it for me for a week. Can't do that anymore. Well, you might be able to do that if I called you and say, hey, you got this book, can I get it? Whatever, but whatever.
Sure, I'm happy to, and I'll send it to you. I'll ship it out to you.
But it's like sometimes you just want to it's a tangible thing. You want to look at it and feel it and flip through the pages and debate in your head whether you should be spending half your life savings on this book or whatever.
Yeah, or just be able to smell that old comic shop or that old record shop.
Yeah. And, of course, I have this fear, and I'll just put it out there because, I'm sure somebody's thought of this, is you start thinking because everybody's washing their hands and staying away from each other, wearing masks and everything, it's like, how clean are these comic books, It's like, what if this guy is on his COVID-19 deathbed and he has to sell his collection immediately to pay his medical bills or whatever, and now they're shipping them to you direct, it's like, it's like the panic ensues and, everything else, and so you go,
well,
I'm never buying an old comic book again, ever,
Well, if you put it aside untouched for a week or two,
True.
At some point, the virus would have to die.
True.
So,
and I'm not that paranoid. I've gotten a few packages in the mail, and they always say, they've said on the news, they say, set it outside for 20. I'm not going to do that. I just open it up, and I wash my hands as soon as I open it.
I'm not going to set it outside for 24 hours or whatever, because if I leave it out there, it's going to be gone the next day. No, thank you.
But they were saying that. I think it was on the Today Show or something like that. That's good advice.
Yeah.
Set it outside. No, I'm not setting packages outside. They're coming in the house, I'll spray it with Lysol if it has to, but, it's like...
There you go.
But, anyway... the hazards of shopping, but it did cross my mind, and then of course I go, I have every comic book I ever need, like every comic collector says at some point, I have every comic book I ever need, and it's like, no, if you're a true fan,
not at all.
That never happens.
Speaking of, to change the subject really quickly here, but that reminded me, I don't know if you had seen this news story that had been going around the last couple of days, but I think it's Sotheby's that is going to be auctioning it off. They're auctioning off a collection of every single DC comic was ever published from 1935 to, I think it was to 2014.
Yeah.
Every single DC comic.
Now, was this a single owner or what? I didn't read it that thoroughly. I just didn't know about it because I saw it.
I had assumed because they were talking about it as a single collection.
Wow. And is it?
That's pretty amazing.
That's
the guy. No, that's the guy that says, "I have every comic book I'll ever need."
Until he sells it. They starts over again. What? They've gone up in price? Darn it. I liked it when they were 10 cents. Silly me. Anyway.
Yeah.
Actually, do you know who Craig Yo is? Yeah.
I've met him a few times.
Okay.
I mean, I think he even knows who I am at this point.
Yeah, and so he has his own line of books, EO books through IDW and stuff. But and I'm trying to get him on this show, hint, hint, Craig. Anyway, but he says, I'm not buying this collection. They misspelled Schuster.
I did see that.
I thought that was very funny. But
I had the pleasure of meeting Craig a couple times in San Diego. He knows that I'm the co-owner of Heidi Ho, and I always tell him how much I love to order his books, because I got a lot of certain percentage of our customers are like the old timers who love all the old Silver Age stuff, Bronze Age stuff, whatever, Ditko, anything Ditko, Kirby, whatever.
Right.
So they gravitate towards a lot of the stuff that Craig publishes, and I try to keep that stuff pretty well stocked.
That's cool.
So, yeah, so I think based on that, he likes me.
So, let's see. What other things, if anything, are you doing, or is it just all concerned about the keeping the livelihood of the store going and everything at this point? Or do you ever get a break and like, oh, I can sit here and watch this movie or at home, or read this book or something? Are you able to do other things during this time?
A little bit, yeah. Before we actually officially closed, I grabbed a stack of books that I thought, okay, I'm going to catch up on my reading. And I've managed to do a little bit of it. But, I've been trying to keep busy putting as much stuff on eBay that I can for the shop, and, going into the shop to pack up orders, which every time, we go in the morning and there's like a whole new flood of orders, which is great.
Yeah.
But I'm still managing to get some other things done. I did manage to, for the most part, finish the new collector's volume, which I'll release digitally real soon here. Mm-hmm. And I got to admit, what is really, really kind of nice is the past week and a half, excuse me, I've found myself with more time to kind of just sit down and enjoy with my wife.
That's great.
Which I really haven't had a lot of that. When I'm so busy literally doing the full-time job of running and managing the shop, and then also the full-time job of trying to be a cartoonist and self-publish and create content, I find myself with very little time, a lot of time to spend with her. And it's like just fighting to find that time.
Right.
And now it seems like I will work in the afternoon as much as I can, and then we make dinner, which is also kind of nice because we've been cooking more at home than we've ever had.
Right.
And we'll have dinner together, and then we kind of just will spend just the evening together, even if it's just saying, hey, let's watch this movie that we've been wanting to watch, or, oh, we can start watching this TV show that we've been wanting to watch. And, we'll do that. Mm-hmm. And that actually has been really nice and really enjoyable.
Now,
yes, we did watch Tiger King.
I saw that. I saw that on your page. I went to your Facebook page to see what's he talking about. No, okay, Tiger King. Okay.
Yeah, which is just a crazy, bananas insane.
Now, positively or negatively, are you getting more material for your collector's strip out of all this?
Well, I'm going to be. Like I said, I've finished the content that I needed to create for the new book. Because like every book, I try to do like an original 7-page, 9-page, whatever story. Yeah. And I had been lagging on that because I've been so busy with the shop. But all of a sudden this past week, I found myself with the time to be able to finish pencil, inking, and coloring and lettering, and just knock it out really fast. So that's done. And now I can see myself sitting down and just doing more content, creating more strips, doing more experimentation with animation. I've been putting up, if you happen to see it, I'll take some of my older strips and I'll animate them.
Yeah,
with a little intro, and
cool.
A little title card intro and everything, a little intro music. And I'm able to kind of just experiment and do more of that. So, yeah, I see myself now in the coming weeks, however many months this goes on for. I may be homeless, but I'm going to create more comic strips.
I may be homeless, but I'll have a film out there, by gum. I will have a big book of my collections, big hardback.
Sitting on the curb next to me.
Do you know Shannon Wheeler?
I don't.
Okay. You may know Too Much Coffee Man.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
He drew that for years. I see this. He made this big omnibus, or Dark Horse, I think, made it actually. That's like, I don't know how many pages. It's like every story he ever took, and so it's this huge hardback. I don't know if you've ever had it in the store, but he was selling it at a show a couple years ago, and I was just thinking about all your strips. You finally get them all together the same way he did when you're eventually, tired of doing it or whatever. Just want to have a comprehensive collection. This big, giant hardback
I thought of
phone
that,
book.
doing like a giant hardback of everything,
big
all
omnibus,
of the all the material from all the books or from anywhere else.
Yeah.
And it would be really nice, and it would be really big, and it'd probably be really beautiful. But I got to think, who's going to buy that?
So I'm thinking, I'm homeless, but I have that book out.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's hard enough trying to get people at a convention to buy a $5 or $10 self-published book. I can't imagine what it would be like trying to get them to buy a big, giant omnibus.
Yeah. You'd be amazed. He did sell one. That was up here a couple of years ago in Eugene. They had a convention. Now, he's done different things in recent times. At the time, he had his version of the Holy Bible and then a book called Shit My President Says.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what he was selling. And he did have one of those omnibuses and did sell it. It was like $100. I was like, wow. It's like... Big fan of Coffee Man, so there we go.
Wow.
To me, that literally is too much Coffee Man. But anyway, anyway, going off on a tangent again. Since we talked about an hour here, is there anything you want to promote, or tell people how to get in touch with you for any of your comics?
Yeah, sure. Well, shop-wise, you can always go to HeidiHoComics.com or follow us on social media at HeidiHoComics.com or at HeidiHoComics. You can contact us through either of those by email or phone. If you're looking for anything during this, shutdown, you need some reading material, let us ship it out to you. As far as my own comic strip, you can always find it at collectorscomic.com, and then there's a link to the socials right there on the website. You can read the newest ones there, and coming soon you'll be able to also order the newest volume coming out, Collectors Volume 5. Most likely going to be released digital only until eventually businesses start opening up and you can go to print.
All right, and then of course when that happens you'll probably announce it again, just saying, hey, now available in a print edition. Yep.
Yep, I'm going to have 2 new releases for it.
Very good. Okay. Well, anything else you'd like to say before we have to go? Or
well, thank you for having me. Thank you for talking to me, and thank you for listening to me. And you and everybody else, please stay safe, stay home. Yeah. Don't be dumb. Don't go to the grocery store and clog up all the aisles and get up close to everybody like the people that did to me and my wife the other day, and make me want to say, just back up.
Yes.
Just be smart, be safe, and wash your hands.
All right. Sounds good. Good advice. Thank you for listening, and thank you, Eddie DeAngelini, for being my special guest. Episode number 75 will be coming soon. If you would like to comment and or be a guest on this podcast, please drop me a line at funideas.mark@gmail.com. Become a patron of Mark Arnold and Fun Ideas Productions. If everyone listening just contributed $1 a month, that would be a tremendous help in continuing the production of my books and this podcast. Also, subscribe to my YouTube channel. The opening and closing music for the Fun Ideas podcast is provided courtesy of Andrew the Slow Poisoner Goldfarb and is used with permission. This has been the Fun Ideas podcast. This is Mark Arnold speaking. This episode is copyright 2020, Fun Ideas Productions. Thank you, and good night.
Headed home to a cardboard hut with duct tape doors. At the price I'm paying, be glad it isn't yours. Now get up, Crab Mountain. Don't fall back. Don't fall